Let's go ahead and look at the new ways in which we can actually create a request, an HTTP client request that is part of the new feature in Java 9. Well, I went ahead and created this old way, or the current way of doing this, where we create a URL object and we pass here a URL, which is the URL that is specifying where we want to go fetch information from. In this case, it's from buildappswithpaulo.com, and then we create the URL connection and we open it, and of course we create a buffer reader object which will allow us to add an input stream reader, and inside there we actually put the input stream from our connection. So essentially we're saying, okay, we got all the information from our URL from this website here, and now we're going to extract all of the HTML, everything that we get from our URL. That's exactly what's happening here. Okay, and then of course for us to be able to display it, we create an input string and we read everything that we're getting from our input. Okay, and read line, this reader here, this buffer reader, and then we system it out. And of course, once we're done, we just close our connection. This is the way we are able to do with Java 8 and lower versions of Java. But now, with new HTTP2 additions, we can do the same thing a little bit simpler and a little bit to the point. How do we do that? Well, simply what we can do is go up to here. I'm going to go ahead and say HTTP client, because I need a client for this to work. But you start noticing something very interesting here. It says here HTTP client. It comes from JDK incubator.http. That means the incubator, this doesn't come directly with our Java 9 SDK, the standard edition. It means we actually have to import, we actually have to require this library or this package. Okay, so what I mean is, if you go ahead and say enter, you notice we have this red that tells us, if you hover over, it says the module course app does not have the module HTTP client in requirements. Okay, because it's not part of the Java 9 SE or standard edition. Okay. Other question would be, well, what is this incubator thing? Well, the incubator is just think of it as a way that the Java developers, the people who actually develop this language, all of the APIs and everything new, it's a way for them to say, well, we are still kind of working on this, yet we'll let you use it. Okay, but it's not going to be included in the standard libraries that we're pushing to you right now. It's just going to be something that it's extra that you need to import, or you need to require it in order for you to use it. Okay, it's not available for the general public, if you will. So developers can still use it to test things out and even include in their project, but it's just more of saying, use it, but we're not ready for you to really use it. That's what it means. Okay, but we're going to be able to use it here because I want to make sure, I would like you to show you this new addition. That's very important. All right, so I'm going to keep going. I'm going to say HTTP client. I'm going to just go ahead and say HTTP client, that new client as such. Of course, we have that problem. Now, because we are in IntelliJ, what we can do, we can just click here and go to this red or this bulb here and click on that. And the good thing is that it actually tells us, because it knows we've been using modules, module.info. So each of our module has that module.info, that Java, that allows us to add what we require and what we are exporting. This is part of the new Java module system, which is very handy. So it's saying here that we can actually add this as a require inside of our directive module.info. So easily we can just go ahead and say click that, and you notice it will be required. If you go back to this module info, the first one here from course app, because that's the one we need to add, and you notice it says here requires. We could have said something like this, JDK, and we could add whatever else that we may require. Okay, but because IntelliJ is smart enough, it knows exactly what we need. Very nice. So once you do that, that's how you're going to be able to actually see that we can use the HTTP client. All right, so like I said, we're going to do the same thing, this current way of doing things, but now in a newer way, in a newer Java 9 way. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to say HTTP request, because now I need an HTTP request and make sure you're getting it from the incubator HTTP. Okay, this object is needed here. I'm going to call this HTTP request is equal to HTTP request incubator dot new builder dot URI, and I'm going to pass a new URI, unified resource identifier, which then I can pass the link where I want to specify the URL, which in this case is going to be HTTPS www.buildappswithpaolo.com as such. Okay, but it's a little complex statement. It's not done yet. I'm going to say enter and say dot. I need to make sure to tell that I'm actually getting something, right? I'm fetching, I'm not posting, right? This is the HTTP request types, so, or methods rather. So I'm going to say get, because I'm getting dot build. So I'm actually I've now built my URI HTTP request. We have issues here. If you double click, this means things could go wrong. So we need to put inside of a surrounded with catch and try. Just click that. Okay. So inside here, once we have our HTTP request, a way of us requesting, right, our URL here, this website, we are now able to go ahead and create a response. Okay, I'm going to see HTTP response. Make sure it's also part of the JDK incubator. I'm going to say, I'm going to expect a string because this HTTP response is a generic that can contain different kinds of objects. I'm going to call this HTTP response is equal to HTTP client dot send request. Which request? Well, we're going to send our HTTP request. And the next thing we're going to add here is a handler, which is going to be the HTTP response dot body handler dot as string, because I just want to get it as a string. Of course, we're going to have some issues here. Let's add surround it again as such. Okay, and then here what I can do, I can say s out, and I just can go ahead and say HTTP response, because now this object has the response body, just like that. Now I know it seems like a lot of code, but really, if we get rid of all those tries and catches, you will notice that it's a simpler way. It doesn't have a lot of code, maybe not as much or less than what we had here before, but you notice now that it's more straightforward and it's easier to understand what's really happening, because now we create our HTTP client and then we create our request, which means that we have to add and go and get the request or get the actual remote server, the remote URL, right? We're specifying our URL where we're getting this information. And then what we do, we create an HTTP response, right? Because if we are getting something or if you are sending something, we need a response. So we're fetching that response. It's going to be strings, and then we get the body as strings. Okay, so this body here, HTTP response, we just say HTTP response dot body, and then get the body of whatever we're getting from our URL. Okay, so it does the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and comment this out. And you notice we don't even have to close anything here, because the HTTP response, HTTP request, and HTTP client knows exactly what to do with all of that. And it looks like we are having some issues here. It says warning, incubator modules used. Maybe my website is not the best example. Let me go ahead and just give it just a Google, simple Google. That would probably work best for our example here. And there we go. It gave us a warning, but it still was able to go and get all that information. So now we're able to get the Google page, and you can see it's got a lot of HTML and everything as a text file. Okay, so that's the new HTTP, the new HTTP client for HTTP2 in Java 9. Okay, Perfect. Go ahead and play around this concept. It's pretty fun. And if this makes no sense to you, it's okay. I just want you to, if you're a beginner, I just want you to look at this and keep this in mind. So continue with the course where we're going to be using most of Java 8 because that's what we are using currently. But once Java 9 is solid and ready to be used in production, then you'll be able to compile everything with Java 9 with no problem. Okay? Perfect. I'll see you next.